How's it going, guys? I just finished watching Star Wars Rebels episodes Jedi Knight and Dume. Now, I've never done these before, these reviews for episodes, and certainly it's strange to do reviews for episodes that are the last half of the last season of a series. But I think this is something that I want to do moving forward. So let me know if this is something that you like to hear, and it's going to be really short, really free form, and just sort of thoughts on what I just saw. There are spoilers ahead, so prepare yourself for that. So this is Star Wars Rebels Season 4, Episode 10 and 11, Jedi Knight and Dume, respectively. Both episodes are really centered around the Jedi Knight Kanan rescuing the love of his life, Hera, Captain Syndulla, General Syndulla, who is a pilot for the fledgling rebellion at this time. She was captured by Admiral Thrawn, and he and the rest of the team are going to rescue her from captivity from the previous episode, Rebel Assault. He ends up being forced, or he ends up deciding to sacrifice himself in order to save the rest of the Rebel crew, including his Padawan learner, Ezra Bridger, and the pilot, Sabine Wren, I believe is the last name, as well as, of course, his love, Captain Syndulla. So going into this series, you knew that it had to end before Rogue One, essentially, where you knew that there was an existing Jedi Knight, Kanan, in this series, who wasn't around in episode 4. And throughout this series, he's training a very powerful young Jedi Knight, Ezra Bridger, who we still don't know what's going to happen to him. Throughout the course of this series, they've run across literally everyone from Admiral Thrawn, which was amazing to bring this character into this specific scenario, really, because the entire season is going to answer the biggest question that everyone had from his announcement of existence within Star Wars Rebels to Rogue One and future movies never having mentioned him. So what's going to happen to Admiral Thrawn after they just introduced him in this series? And so there's a lot riding on how they wrap up these last few episodes. Having Kanan sacrifice himself for his family, essentially, makes perfect sense. He is truly a Jedi Knight, and everything that he brings to the table is that classic version of the Jedi Knight, where it's self-sacrifice and doing what is right, even if it means a short-term loss, living in honor. I mean, he's seeing his development has been really exciting. And so seeing this end for him as a viewer of the entire series is really exciting. And it's a very adult way to deal with the inevitability of none of these characters, or I'm sorry, very few of these characters being around in future existing canon. So it's a really interesting situation that they're setting up. Now, this episode of Dume ends with them finally, at least at the beginnings of processing their grief for the loss of Kanan as a group and as individuals, watching them how each character processes that in their own different ways, and connecting with others is really interesting. It addresses some very adult themes in a child's, like, this is a kid's cartoon, and they're talking about loss and death and sacrifice and the greater good, whatever that means. And so it's a very interesting situation as a viewer, as an adult viewer watching it with my children, to see how they react and everything. I'm forced at this point to really think about, because we know that General Syndulla is going to be in Rebels because she's been mentioned, and she's been in crossover sort of cartoons that Disney has made. So she's even on Endor. during the time of the Battle of Endor, the second Death Star blowing up. And so she met Han Solo and Chewbacca there. So she's definitely around for a long time, but these other characters aren't. And so again, I'm going back to Admiral Thrawn. It was incredibly exciting for them to bring this new character into the mix, but now they have to wrap up these storylines somehow, in some way. How are they gonna manage Admiral Thrawn? This is a really exciting notion. And so I'm going to go at a little speculation range right now. They did a really brilliant thing in separating Admiral Thrawn's character from the episode of Jedi Knight, removing him from his own manufacturing depot, which is a prototype manufacturing plant for the TIE Defender line that in this canon, Admiral Thrawn is responsible for building or for putting together as a concept. He is forced by Grand Moff Tarkin to present his case because the Emperor himself. The Empire is forced to make a decision. Do we continue with creation of the Death Star, which at this point hasn't shown any tangible results, just a money sink, or do they continue through, under the vision of Director Krennic, or do they continue with Admiral Thrawn's TIE Defender line? Which one is going to have the most bang for the buck in the long run? And so Grand Moff Tarkin tells him, look, telling Admiral Thrawn, you need to go to the Emperor and you need to plead your case to keep this project going. I think this may be more valuable than Director Krennic's project, Stardust. So he leaves, which makes it much more reasonable to understand that the rebels are able to go in, cause such a headache, because every time Admiral Thrawn is around, there's so much weight as a character to him, not just from the presence that he has in the scenes that he's in, and just as the character, the history of the character, there's a lot of weight with him. So having him in these scenes, knowing that he's a master tactician, the rebels probably wouldn't have evaded him if he was there. So it was brilliant writing to get him out of there so that they could get away with most of their lives in this case. But in their escape attempt, Governor Price, who was overseeing the facility in Admiral Thrawn's absence, destroyed their fuel cells in order to, of course, kill Kanan and trying to kill the rest of the rebels. In doing that, she completed their mission, ultimate mission of stopping the TIE Defender manufacturing facility. So they succeeded in their loss, and it just presents this new problem. How can the Emperor continue to fund a program that no longer can operate isolated? They're going to have to put in tons of money in order to get fuel and manufacturing capacity brought up to par. Which then explains later why you don't see TIE Defenders running around, which is a sort of brilliant knot to tie into that storyline to complete it. I really enjoyed that a lot. One thing that I loved about Star Wars Rebels so much is the writing is so great. Dave Filoni and his team is just really brilliant. And this is my biggest complaint about The Last Jedi, for example, in that they use the story group in order to craft their stories, whereas Rian Johnson had to be bothered by the story group to interject content. And so it's leveraging the existing knowledge databases that are there in order to create intelligent, emotionally driven, meaningful stories. And that's what Star Wars is known for. That's what's so great about it in the novel and in the comic book side of things, and to some degree in the movie side of things. And Star Wars Rebels is doing a brilliant job with that, with these last two episodes. So leading into the next episode, as we're coming up on the 10-minute mark, and I don't want to go over that with these reviews, we're going to be going to a Jedi temple to liberate it from Imperial occupation. That's sort of the next step in the next coming up episodes. So as these wrap up, let me know if you think these commentaries are valuable, these reviews of the episodes. And until we can chat again, may the Force be with you. Princess Moon. Princess Moon.